How are you? Hope you're fine. This is the Shy Yeti Show.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Oh, there's gonna be some drama ahead.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
I see your mental condition is improving.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he said all that shy is right.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life Podcast.
Hello.
650.
650. Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast The Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. So how are you? I'm all right. I've got a very special guest this episode, and but don't tell anyone. I've decided that this particular guest hasn't been on the show for ages, but it's quite difficult to get him sort of here in person. So I've done a little bit of witchcraft magic, just low level witchcraft, and yes, he'll be arriving any time now. So let's run the theme music, and when we come back, he'll be here. So yes, run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Yeah, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The High Life, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
I'll go anyway if I say so.
Delicious.
Hello, campers. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you?
Oh, yippee.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
I love the Yeti test. It's my favorite thing.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Yeah, I am strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
I could eat my body weight in crisps every day.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
It's all green. Yum, 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 yum.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
I'd like that, yeah.
Marvellous, Paul.
Hi there.
Hello, listeners. We have a very special guest here, and as well as Dealey, we have another guest called Andrew who's here, and he's an extra special guest. And yes, I know we have lots of Andrews, but this is the original Andrew. This one has been around almost as long as any Andrew ever. Anyway, he's been on the show before, but last time he was in Berlin, and this time he's not in Berlin. He's here in my living room in Surrey. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Oh, hello, Paul. I'm not sure why I'm in your living room. How did I end up here exactly? I was just walking along, and suddenly I found myself here. It's a bit weird.
It was magic. I was doing one of those, you've seen Dark Shadows. I was doing a little sort of seance-y thing, and even though you're not dead, I don't think you are, it conjured you up here. So you were brought through time and space. So.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why you brought me here. It's a bit mysterious.
Well, I wanted you back on the show.
Yep.
Because we've known each other a very long time. 30 years ago, almost the day, we were walking through the hills and mountains of Wales and England, because we won't be going backwards and forwards between country. We were on the border, the office type path.
Yeah, we were skipping along the border.
We were skipping along the border, and we survived. You survived better than I did,
yep.
but yeah. So we were talking just now about things you've been watching and things that you like, and you mentioned to me a one-off show called The Stone Tape by Nigel Neal, who wrote Quatermass, as being one of your favourites, and it's one of my favourites too.
Why do you like it?
Well, it's sort of, encapsulate. Well, it's for those who don't know, it's a ghostly tale, and I like the premise that ghosts are things, or the walls of the building have recorded the presence of. Like, for instance, I worked somewhere for 20 years, so I would like to think that one day I will haunt that building because
something traumatic should happen to you.
Yeah, well, they sacked me, so that would be the end point. So now that's cut the tape.
So you'd be screaming for eternity. And
okay. I'm hoping that's happening even now. That would serve them right for treating me like badly. But so I do like that, and it's creepy. And what about you? What's your main thing about it that you like?
Well, I like the way that it's set up. You think you're watching a ghost story at the beginning, and it soon turns out that very quickly turns out that you kind of are watching a ghost story, but then it becomes much more complicated very quickly because a ghost appears in the first, 5 minutes or something, and you think, okay, that's going to be a straightforward haunted house kind of thing, but it soon becomes much more involved.
I think the basic haunted house setup, I sort of tend to avoid those because they do often, you've kind of seen it all before, whereas the Stone Tape takes it off down a very different line and is much more complicated. And I think that's one of the reasons that I like it so much. It's not just your basic haunted house.
And also it's the old, Nigel Kneale, it's got quite a few similarities with Quatermass and the Pit, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That you have this strange object being found, and people have to work out what that object is, what it means, and as the story progresses, it's like an archaeology, digging away at this thing and finding out more about it until at the end you realise what the thing is. So, so you don't know where the story's going for quite a long time, and I won't spoil the ending, but it ends in quite a different place to where it, to where it starts.
And was it about 90 minutes, is it, or something?
90 minutes. It's like a play, basically, and it looks and feels like a theatrical play, which is an advantage, I think, because it makes it all seem like it's really happening.
Yeah.
And
it's probably the thing I would go to above Quatermass. I think
it's shorter.
Well, it's shorter, but also it's in colour, and I can be not in the right mood for black and white, which I know certain listeners will be very cross with me for saying that. But
it is, however, very dated. It's 1972, I think, older. Yeah. Even older than perhaps we are.
Even older than us, yeah.
So, I don't know, how do you think it stands up?
Well, this is going off on a tangent slightly, but often when you hear people talking about TV they liked, it's TV they liked when they were children and they have a nostalgia for it.
Whereas this is something
that we have discovered
predates us.
Yeah, and this is something we've discovered as adults or whatever, whenever we first saw it.
Because it's not a kids thing at all.
No, not a kids thing at all. No, but
it's not terribly. I wouldn't say it's scary, or it's that kind of horror where it's not like jump scares or blood.
More slowly creepy.
But it's more creepy and uncanny and confusing and just unsettling, which a kid wouldn't appreciate because a kid wouldn't understand what's happening.
But I like finding things that predate me, or that I can't, because sometimes I've watched things and think, do I like this because it's good, or do I like it because I saw it when I was... Whereas if you discover something maybe that's older, it's weird. Some things like the Avengers I discovered as a child, but it was long since finished when I discovered it. But I still don't think that that's a nostalgia thing. Although I was very nostalgic, well, not nostalgic for the 60s, I was very into the 60s in the 80s,
Wow. Also, I mean, I think the Stone Tape has never been. It's not something which is repeated or anything. It's not like something which is on every year. It's kind of you'd have to look out for it. You'd have to find it.
Yeah, and it had quite good. I don't think it's ever been on Blu-ray. I think it's like
It was released with Ghostwatch, I think, as a kind of a package.
Oh, right, because I got it with an earlier release where it's standalone, but because am I right? The main character is played by, is it Jane Asher?
Yeah.
Who you almost forget was an actress because of becoming a punchline in French and Saunders sketches in the late 80s, as well as being known for being Paul McCartney's girlfriend before Linda.
Oh yes.
Yeah. I don't know how much Jane Asher was acting that time. I haven't seen a great deal of things she's in. She was in the reboot of Crossroads in the noughties, but I'm sure she's done many things that are worthy and that I should have seen.
I wanted to ask about the other actors in the Stone Tape, because apparently somebody told me you don't like shows with alpha males in them. Whereas this show has nothing but alpha males, mainly shouty men, being bossy and annoying for 90 minutes.
But at least it has a main woman, and I can feel I can sort of.
Yeah, but she kind of doesn't have the nicest time.
No.
And the men are quite mean to her.
What's his name? Who's in Rebus Operation?
Ian Cuthbertson.
Yes, I remember him being in it. I can't remember a lot of other people in it.
It bizarrely has Reginald Marsh, who's more famous as the boss in Terry and June and The Good Life. He pops up and is quite weird in it, being Reginald Marsh. I don't think he can do anything else. He's wearing a very peculiar wig as well. I think you could argue that, it's the only sympathetic character is the woman, played by Jane Asher, who no one believes. It's a typical kind of plot, She's warning of this terrible thing. No one listens to her. They press on ahead, foolishly, trying to exploit whatever this thing that they found could give them, and ignore her warnings. And but oddly enough, the men don't come out of it quite badly at the end.
It was very. That seems very familiar, because I like Italian giallo films of that sort of period, and that is often a female character being driven. Someone's trying to drive her mad, and yes, lots of horrible alpha males. But but you are right. I did say that I don't like things with alpha males in, but. That was referring to Red Dwarf, which I resent because it stole Doctor Who. But I do have I think I must have blotted out the alpha males in the Stone Tape, but the other female characters in it are probably mostly all dead.
I don't think there are any other female characters in it.
Oh, I thought there was Screaming.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes. There is a screaming ghost. I didn't really think of her as a character.
But
yeah. There is a screaming female ghost.
Yes.
Whose screams are quite central to the whole thing,
Makes me want to watch it again. I have to dig it out this weekend.
Yeah.
Did you find a copy? I think you're allowed to. Did you find a copy on YouTube?
You can certainly find a copy there, and it's in lovely, ropey, old quality, with no high definition whatsoever, so it's a real experience.
I don't think they can make it that high definition anyway. No. I was doing something very similar. It's quite interesting to see what you can find on YouTube, because these, you might say to somebody, "I've seen a good copy of this," and then 2 weeks later, someone's taken it down. But I was doing this for Martin's Vision on Sound, and just sort of, if I wanted to watch some cult TV, what could I, if I typed in a few shows, what could I find? And invariably you won't find the whole series, well sometimes you find the whole series, but sometimes you just find an odd episode of something. It's quite nice to know that, you know, you don't always have to, because a lot of these older shows aren't available on streaming anyway, so you either have to have physical copies or YouTube. But does it make you cross when there are shows you want to see but you don't have a DVD copy, but no one's streaming it because they don't think, it feels like they're kind of going, well, that's not, it's almost like going back in time. You know, shows that we might easily have had on video back in the 90s or something, and suddenly you want to see them, and it's actually hard to see them. It feels like somebody has decided that those shows don't really matter, no one really wants to watch them. But
I guess so, but but if nobody wants to watch them, what can you do?
But some people do. You know, sometimes it's easier to watch an episode of Sutton Park on YouTube than it is to watch an episode of, I don't know, some previously high budget show from the 60s.
Well, that's very true. Yeah.
Obviously, that is good for Sutton Park, but I was thinking, I was going to ask you, are there shows that you were watching, say, around the time we first met 30-something years ago, that you still go back to now, probably other than Doctor Who, because that's slightly different?
Oh, I'd have to think about that. I'm more nostalgic for things that I watched when I was a kid, to be honest, and when I was in my 20s. I can't even remember what, and even if I went back, I'd probably be horrified at how badly they've dated, you know, things in the 90s anyway.
Well, some of the things...
You think about things in the 90s as being cool and smart, but if you go back, they're probably disgusting and horrible.
But then we were watching stuff in the... Or you were sometimes sending... Because you had access to Sky, I think. Or,
no, I never had Sky, no.
You had something. Was it Sky B or one? No. I know you did me a tape of Jupiter Moon.
No, not me. Must be one of the many other Andrews.
Deals. Another Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Which one was it? You think about it, let me know. I did remember watching a lot of 60s shows in the late 80s, and I still go back, not sort of excitedly necessarily, but occasionally, like I've been watching The Invaders, and I still like things like Bewitched, which I enjoyed. Again, a lot of these shows you don't want to watch. I own a lot of these on DVD somewhere anyway, but you wouldn't want to watch a whole box set of Bewitched. You wouldn't want to watch all 300 and something episodes, but it's quite fun to watch, like a one-off episode. The shows from the 90s that I've gone back to, I watched this. I used to like This Life, which was sort of mid 90s, but I think that was sort of, I guess they were a couple of years older than us, the characters, and there was lots of Britpop music in it, and I mean, they are horrible people or horrible characters. They're not likeable. I don't know if they felt likeable at the time, but
I think I missed out on quite a lot of the 90s because I went away in the middle of the 90s and missed out completely on British TV.
I missed out on some things because after I left university, I lived somewhere, which I think you came to visit when I lived in Camberley. Didn't have TV reception there for those 2 years, so that's when I was watching Dark Shadows and stuff my mum would video me, like Home and Away and that, just so I had something to watch, because I couldn't sort of what was. Had I wanted to have watched the funeral of Princess Diana, I wouldn't have been able to because I had no TV reception. But I don't think I'd have watched it even if I had done, unfortunately, only because it's a bit morbid.
No, I was away. I was in Japan at that point.
Yeah.
So the only things I watched in Japan were, I'm afraid, Japanese TV, and I got hooked on Beverly Hills 90210. And I watched that for about a year. It was my favourite programme because it was the only thing on in English that I could watch. and I can't remember much about it now, but I was totally addicted to that. I followed it.
That's pretty
religiously.
That's pretty soapy. That's pretty
very much so. Yeah.
I never.
When I watched Twin Peaks as well, because I used to live with someone in Japan who had the box set, and he introduced me to that, and we had a binge weekend watching the whole thing. That was wonderful.
Yeah,
I was always catching up with things much later than they were actually aired.
I would associate Twin Peaks more with sixth form, although even though we're quite similar in age, you're a different school year for me. But it was very much, very very hot in the sixth form common room. It was Twin Peaks. Again, I own it on DVD, and I've wanted to go back and watch it, and I'll get there eventually.
Well, I quite often catch up with things years after they've come out.
Yeah.
Especially true now.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't like it if people are saying, "Oh, you should watch this. You should watch this." I want to decide when my brain decides. Listeners, hi. Andrew's here still, but I got to go and do something, so I'm leaving him in the safe hands of Yeti Uncle John. Now, Yeti Uncle John, you're not going to sell anything to him, are you? I will not. No, I definitely won't. I'll just look after him. I'll speak to him like a normal person. He is a normal person, isn't he? He is. But whether you are, oh, charming, thank you very much. Anyway, go along. Just go and speak to him. I've known him a long time. Be nice to him. Oh, I'm doing it. Oh, Oh, hello. My name is Yeti Uncle John. Very pleased to meet you.
I'd just like to clarify that I am completely normal, and I've got a certificate to prove it if you want to see it. Here it is.
Oh, thank you very much.
As you can see, perfectly normal.
Oh, yes.
Capital N for normal, that's me.
Oh, very good.
They call me Mr. Normal, that's what they call me.
Oh, good. Well, you know, did you get this off the internet? Did you have to do a proper course?
Well, yes. It was as it happens. Yeah, internet course.
Oh.
Yeah. I can recommend it if you want.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I quite like one of those.
It's very simple. You just pay up front, and you get a certificate the next day.
Oh, yeah, I'd like that, because the thing is, associating with Mr. Paul does tend to mean that you get a bit of a reputation of not being normal.
Oh, well.
You know.
That's not fair, is it?
No.
No, not fair at all.
Tarred by the same brush as him.
Exactly, yeah.
I should be known for being the inventor of computers made of cheese, or should be known for, like, doing ghost hunts for ghosts, or being a world-renowned magpie fancier. But, you know, somehow I'm known as that guy off that podcast.
Oh, dear me.
It's difficult. Oh dear. I feel like I can tell you things. I don't know.
Yeah, you just told me the computer made of cheese. That's intriguing, actually.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
No, I always thought.
Which type of cheese? Gorgonzola, or
I tried a number of different varieties.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that, you know,
ricotta? Have you done ricotta one?
Ricotta's not so easy.
No, it wouldn't be.
No.
That's why I asked. Yeah.
No, I tried it. Didn't work.
No, you want a hard cheese, really.
Definitely.
Parmesan.
Yes. I think you're a man after Andrew. I think you're a man after my own heart. Yeah. I think we.
I would avoid, by the way. Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Is your Swiss cheese, because it got holes.
Yeah, definitely.
And you get your fingers stuck in.
Yes, and there's also a possibility of losing RAM and things like that.
Well,
whatever that is. I don't know what RAM is.
Well, it's a technical word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Proper technical word.
Yeah.
I can see you've researched this.
I have. So computers made of cheese. You know, he was poo-pooed a little bit.
Wow.
But you know, a lot of things I do get poo-pooed. I went up. I don't know if you know this. I went up into space once.
Right.
Well, more than once. But
with your cheese computer?
No. Just to kind of search my fortunes.
Right. Okay.
But I came back.
You're a bit like Elon Musk, aren't you?
Well, you know, but only.
He hasn't been into space, actually.
No, I've got a bit more integrity, but don't let me hear that.
Oh no.
But well, I don't know. I just think that I'm very keen to explore the wonders of the unknown and things.
Yeah. Have you found anything?
I found some fluff.
Oh.
Definitely intelligent fluff, I must say.
Yeah.
Obviously, also my research on magpies has taught me a lot. Magpies are very intelligent birds.
Now then, there's some superstitions with magpies, aren't
there? Yeah. A lot of misinformation out there as well, though. You know, they get the blame for things that other birds do, because, you know, they're known for their squawking.
Yeah, they are a bit squawky now you come to mention it. Yeah. Well, is there a magpie here? I just heard one.
That
was you?
That was me.
Oh, sorry, I thought there was a magpie there.
Well, you know, when you live with them, you get to always
do you do other bird impressions or just magpies?
Mainly just magpies.
Mainly magpies. You could do... who was that guy? Percy... What was his name?
Percy... No, Percy,
yeah,
the man who did impressions.
Percy, the bird impression person. Yeah. You could be the next.
Wow. Well, I'm a little bit limited, but I guess I could learn.
Percy Thoreau. He was in
Blue Peter. He was in the garden.
Percy Sugden.
Percy Sugden. He was in Emmerdale Farm.
Let's list all the famous Percys.
Percy.
I think we've done it now.
Percy. Yeah.
Percy.
There was a Kinks album called Percy, but I don't think we could talk about that. That was something unsightly happened. But
where were we?
Well, yes. So I was just telling you how talented I am.
Yes.
But I have dabbled in like autobiography of myself,
right?
Because I feel like
you got too young, surely. I mean,
well, thank you, but
or part one, is it? Or?
Well, yes, possibly. Oh, I did write one from the point of view of how I sort of created the Shy Life podcast, even though Paul maintains it was his idea. But I wrote an autobiography, but he insisted on proofreading it, and he cut it to shreds. He did cut it to shreds. You know, he just won't accept quite how much influence I had on, you know, the creation of this.
Oh, I expect he's jealous.
Yeah. Well, you see, I always blame it on that Sutton Park thing he used to do. He was the star of that, and yet can't always be the star, Paul. Shy Life podcast is an ensemble piece.
Just between you and me, I've always thought Paul's a bit of a diva, you know.
No, you're telling me.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, you don't have to live with him. Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, it's one of the reasons I was out of the scene for many years. I didn't tend to associate with him. I mean, you know, there was a lot of talk within the Yeti sort of community about avoid him, but
he's got a bit of a reputation, hasn't he?
Yeah. And I didn't really. Well, you know, as I've said, it's very easy to get sort of tarred by the brush of somebody's reputation, and
that's very disappointing. You haven't thought about a rival podcast, have you? Maybe.
I have considered it. I have tried it.
You're a very busy man with your inventions, but
yes. But you know, I'm always trying. I like to think of myself. I like to be able to help people. I'd like to think I'm quite modest and vain. No, quite vain. No, not vain. Modest. That's right.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm quite modest, and that I don't like to big myself up. I like to wait for the, you know, any praise to come my way. But it's been quite a long wait. That's the only trouble. But it's difficult to know. I mean, I'll tell you this because, you know, I think we're friends now. There are some opportunities that I've let slip by because I've been working on this podcast.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I can't say a lot. Well,
no.
I don't like to speak too much, but let's just say that I could have been James Bond, but I missed out. But I was signed up to this podcast, and no, it went.
You do all your own stunts. You wouldn't be like the other ones. You know, you wouldn't be like Roger Moore there.
No. I'd have done my own stunts.
Yeah, you do that. And you wouldn't be wearing a toupee like Sean Connery did.
Oh no.
I mean, you wouldn't. And you wouldn't be doing all this, you know, sensitive stuff like Timothy Dalton.
Oh no.
No, you'd be probably the best one, actually.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You're like a combination of the best bits of all of them.
Thank you.
You'd be wearing blue speedos, wouldn't you, like Daniel Craig? But
of course, because you know.
Coming out of the water.
Yes, there's a certain, you know,
speedos on.
I do have a certain following who would like to see me in speedos, and
you could, well, yes.
I don't know. It's difficult to kind of, you know, move on after, you know, you've lost out on things, and you know, is it better family loyalty or do you just do what you want to do? I don't know. It's I mean, another area. I believe going back, you have somebody of similar talents in your own family. I could have been quite a talented magician. I believe one of your brothers. He was a magician, wasn't he?
Yeah, definitely a magician.
Yes.
Yes, you could have been the next Paul Daniels.
Yeah, well, I did actually.
And I could have been your Debbie McGee or something.
That would have been
gone
wonderful.
now. That chance is gone now.
I know. Well, the thing is, I am aware that there is another dimension where the Shy Life podcast was extremely famous, and Paul was, successful, and I believe that maybe my magic went down very well.
You used to do that thing with a cup and ball, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was taught by the best. There's a gentleman named Toppy Smelly who is a podcaster on a show called The Smellcast. He taught. I'm not saying that I woke up one day and I was a magician. I learned from the best. This Toppy Smelly, he's a talent. He taught me everything I wanted to know.
Well, there was that unfortunate incident where you sawed a woman in half, and best not to mention. I mean, there was quite a lot of legal things going on, and
yes. Well, the thing is,
it was in the news, I think.
I'm the first person to admit that I only really got into magic for the sawing women in half side of it. That's the thing that interested me. Obviously, I've learned more since then, things with ropes and little sleight of hand things. But what got me into it was the idea that I could saw someone in half and yet they wouldn't be hurt. There's also the time when I accidentally magicked up a demon. He was a nice demon.
We've all done that. We've all been there.
Well, that's what I told Paul.
I mean, who amongst us hasn't conjured up a demon?
Exactly. That's what I told Paul. But lots of fuss and nonsense.
The fact that the house burned down is just an unfortunate side effect, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we couldn't afford that on our budget. We had to just put some crackly fire sound effects, but probably for the best. But oh dear, it's just quite refreshing talking to you. You should come over more often, because I don't get to talk to many people who kind of see things the way that I do. I don't know who else you've met, or if you're going to meet anybody else. What are the other? There's Cromitty. He's a nice guy, scientific guy. There's Bettina Dupre. She's an actress. She was in lots of B movies. There's all sorts of weird and wonderful fellows, but obviously, I think most people tune in for me.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. But did I ever tell you about when I was like nearly like a big sort of pop star? I was nearly a pop star back in the day.
Yeah, it was you and Robbie Williams. You were the top two, weren't you?
Well, yes, except somehow my name dropped off the list, and it was very unfortunate. I think. I think the trouble with me is, and this has come up before, I don't like to use the word genius, but some people do, mostly when they've had a few drinks. But the trouble is, when you're talented, you can find that it's difficult. You just instinctively want to multitask, and the thing is, I didn't want to just be a pop singer. I wanted to be inventing things or going up into space. And the trouble is, the realistically, if you're going to be a pop star, you have to do a lot of really boring things, a lot of boring interviews. You have to go on stage. You have to be chased by fans. You have to appear on the front page of the Radio Times, maybe with your top off. And I couldn't be doing all of that and inventing stuff. So I was very torn. What can I say? It was difficult.
Yeah, but your fans were heartbroken, and they really were. And, the number of lives you just ruined.
Touched.
Yes.
Yes, touched quite a few lives.
Yes.
And
well, that's life, I guess.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
the price of fame.
I'll give you a question here. What do you think? Having spoken to me, what do you think are my finest points? My
well, your modesty.
Yeah.
Your self-effacing charm. Your generosity.
Handsomeness. Yes.
Oh yes. Yes. And well.
Modesty. Did you mention that?
I think so, but I'll mention it again.
Yes.
Modesty.
Yeah.
Definitely, I would put that there. That's perhaps your top quality. Your just general awesomeness.
You can see that from only having met me for a very short amount of time. You see, why can't other people? I don't understand it. It's like they're blinkered.
Well.
Yeah. But what would you, if you were going to give me advice? What do you think my next move should be? What do you think I should focus on? When you've got as many talents as me, where do you've got to stop yourself, you've got to say, come on, John, just do one thing at a time. What do you think I should do? Magpies? Was it going to be cheese or ghosts or magic?
Wow. Which one to focus on?
I know.
Well, I would just focus on all of them at the same time.
Well, that's what I'm doing. Do you think I'm going to make a breakthrough eventually? I kind of have felt like that. Like I'm just on the edge of something.
Well, if you don't, I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
I'll be genuinely shocked.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear you say that because it does sort of it sort of gives me that extra boost to feel like I'm on the right course.
Yeah.
I mean, we're only 650 something episodes in to the Shy podcast. There's still time.
That's a mere blip.
Yeah. I mean, it's nothing compared to the number we did for Sutton Park. So,
I've heard some people just put out podcasts once a week.
I know.
Oh, dear me.
Dear, once a month. Oh dear.
That's slacking, if you ask me. But
So what about you? What are you up to? What's your area of expertise?
I'm just basking in your genius. That's mainly what I do.
No, that's very nice of you. Sorry, did you say genius? Did you say?
Did I? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice of you.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like to say it because I don't know if I mentioned I'm quite modest, so I don't like to talk about it too much.
Oh no, well, modest people don't. Do they?
No.
The last thing they do is bring that up.
No. Oh dear. But, so what's it like being on the Shy Life podcast in person? How did you even get here? I didn't see.
Well, I'm not sure. These have been on me for a while, and I don't seem to be able to. Nobody seems to know me. You're a genius. If you could maybe.
Well, we'll have to go and find the key.
We've established.
It's not very nice. It's not very nice. What, has he done some magic to bring you here? Magic to you?
Some dark.
Oh well.
Magic,
this is because we're dealing with the other dimension at the moment. One of our friends, Ick, who's an alien, he's got tentacles. I said tentacles. He's in the other dimension, trapped over there, and we're trying all sorts to get him back. It's probably by accident we conjured you up, like I accidentally conjured up a demon all those years ago. But I'm sure we'll send you back eventually.
Well, if you could possibly find your way to getting the change.
Yeah, we can't afford you for more than one episode.
What do you mean? Are you paying me for this?
Oh, I presume he is. You have to have a word. You have to have a word with him.
I'll have to send in an invoice or something. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think you should. He can't get his guests for free. He's been doing it too long.
Oh right.
He's still he's coming back. So I better let you go. It's been lovely speaking to you.
It's been amazing.
It's been lovely. I feel so much better. I feel empowered. I feel like one of the Spice Girls or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Bend it, shake it, roll it. What?
Which one?
Sporty. I feel like sporty. I feel like I'm energised.
Yeah.
I feel like I could run a marathon, but I think I might just go and have a sleep instead.
Well, yeah.
But, you think, Uncle John, you can stop now. What? You can stop. I was stopping. We had a lovely chat. We've had a lovely chat, haven't we, Andrew?
Best chat ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to say that, Andrew. You really don't. He didn't. He meant it. He used the G word. Not genius. Yes. Okay, well, run along. Oh, he's so patronising to me. He's so patronising, Andrew. Can I come with you? You've got magpies to look after. You can't go gallivanting off to Berlin. Oh dear. stuff? Do you have any streaming services, or do you avoid those? Or?
No, let me think. I should have planned this. What do I watch now? I mean, no. It's again, I'm not living in the UK, so I'm not really in this kind of thing where I can get new things. Either it's something which I know I want to watch, and I'll make an effort to watch it. Like I watched It's a Sin, and then I watched Nolly.
Yes.
These 2 Russell T Davies shows. I made sure I watched those, but unless it's something like that specific, then I probably won't get to it.
Well, I don't. That TV over there is not. We don't have TV anymore. We don't have any because we got rid of the Sky package, and that can be used. That's just used for DVDs now. In fact, I use my laptop more than I use that, because when you think of the size of the laptop and the size of the screen compared to where I sit between the two, I also have terrible short attention span. So if something's an hour, I might get bored after 20 minutes and want to do editing for 20 minutes, because editing can be quite boring as well. So you want to sort of have a little break, do some editing, and then go back to something, and you can just do it all on the laptop. If I do watch anything, I watch like on the Channel 5 website, or if it's a soap, if it's Home and Away or Neighbours, or like Doctor Who, I'll watch on my laptop, or Inside Number 9. But a lot of shows I do watch. It's sort of Inside Number 9. I've watched every episode, but I wouldn't say I loved every single episode.
Oh no, that's not the point, is it?
No.
I mean, yeah. Have you ever gone back to watch previous Inside Number 9s? Because I've seen them all once. There's very, very few I would go back to.
Yeah, I've only seen them once really myself. It's weird, because there's been seasons of Inside Number 9 where maybe I liked one episode out of 6, and then I think it was season 4 or 5 I liked probably 5 out of 6, and the one I didn't like so much was only because I guessed the twist. And I think also the trouble with it is because the people who write it are probably fans of cult TV, like we are. Just because they're famous doesn't mean to say our knowledge of cult TV might be equal. So we might catch up to what they're doing, because we know the kind of thing that they're using as inspiration. Whereas my mum, who watches it, I still think that's pretty good for a nearly 80-year-old. Like sometimes with Inside Number 9, I'm thinking, my mum's watching this. Someone's just had their foot chopped off. Although she likes Taggart, and as she said, once she watched Taggart, nothing really shocked her with. So there are ones where I've got the twist where she hasn't, and also they're continually confusing her, because they do that thing where they pretend it's not happening. Like they go, "Oh, this episode has been cancelled, and we've got something else on," but actually, it's what the episode is about.
Yeah, they did that once with the.
I think they've done it more than once. My mum fell for it the second. They did one for a ghosty one. They did one where they started to infer they were going to show a repeat, and they did one this recent series where they said they were putting on a quiz game instead.
Yes.
And it was a pretty awful quiz game, except that the girl was like.
She had ESP mind controls, and ended up blowing up her mother's head.
But there was only about 2 or 3 things that were weird in it. It was you could easily have watched it and thought you were watching a quiz show.
Yeah.
That was a really bad quiz show.
Or pretty normal quiz show.
Yeah, exactly.
But if it was one where it's in a school in Wales. And I think if you've seen The Wicker Man, you quickly realise, okay, this is going to be The Wicker Man.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen that, then you would have no idea what's going to happen until the last
and I don't think
few minutes.
I don't think it's unfair to say that. I think it is. They are kind of hoping that their viewers haven't watched as much cult TV or cult movies.
Maybe that if you have seen those, that you can enjoy the references.
Yeah. But. Otherwise I don't watch I don't watch a lot. How do you? I'm not sure this is the right phrase. How do you sit with Doctor Who these days? Do you watch it and you mostly enjoy it? Sometimes enjoy it, don't enjoy it?
Well, yeah, I think it goes in phases because I have a daughter and I really wanted her to get into this 13th Doctor because it's a female Doctor, but it ended up not happening really because the stories were a bit...
I don't think it happened for my niece. She dropped off after Matt Smith went. She didn't like there being an older Doctor, even though we know that generally that's what we grew up as, older Doctors. But so she never got as far as the female Doctor. But,
well, the first episode that I showed my daughter, and probably too young, was the pilot, which was Peter Capaldi's.
The last season. His last season.
Yeah, with Pearl Mackie.
Yes.
And my daughter liked that, and then she got into that season, and she liked Missy, and she liked what's her name? Pearl Mackie's character.
Yes.
Nardole. Bill. And she liked Nardole, and she got into that. But when Jodie Whittaker's Doctor came along, it sort of okay. And then she went back and rediscovered Matt Smith, and liked that. So. I don't think there's been a period she hasn't enjoyed, except maybe I'm afraid, the 13th Doctor.
I think it's a shame really that they have to start from scratch when it's a new producer coming in. It would
maybe
because Bill could have lasted a bit longer.
Yeah, she could have. Except she got turned into.
Well, but then they wouldn't have had. They would have had to do something.
Cyberman at the end.
They would have had to do something else instead and not do that. But I kind of like Jodie Whittaker. I don't know why. I think she reminded me of Victoria Wood, and she made me feel safe.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily like the story. But I think that's a different thing. That's a different thing too. Yeah. It's a bit like I like Pierce Brosnan as Bond, but I don't necessarily like his Bond movies, or not all of them.
Yeah. Well, there's been phases where my interest just okay. I'll watch this, but only out of habit. Not because I'm enjoying it, and that happened in the Matt Smith era, and it happened in the Jodie Whittaker era.
I liked Flux a lot. That sort of, but I enjoyed that because you had cliffhangers every week, and I do miss. It is my main problem. Is always comes back to not having cliffhangers, because I like cliffhangers. That's why I like Australian soap operas too. I like a cliffhanger. That's why I did 3,200 and something cliffhangers in the time I did Sutton Park. It's just I'm an addict. My name is Paul, and I'm an addict.
Yes, you are.
To cliffhangers. Yeah.
I'm surprised you're not into reality TV shows. Have you seen The Traitors, for example?
No, I used to be when
that's cliffhanger every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Which one's that one?
Oh, it's one of the many ones with Claudia Winkleman in it. She's doing all the reality TV shows nowadays.
I sort of did when Big Brother was new, but I got excited. I got excited when Tegan and Ace came back, but that was very much nostalgia.
Wow, yes.
And also, I was kind of surprised that I didn't know. We knew about that, but I didn't know about all of the old Doctors coming back. Even though that was a little bit silly, but I still kind of applaud it because they might as well do it whilst they can.
Well, that's true, yeah. However, I'd prefer to go back if I was going to do that, to go back and watch the original series. I did go back with my daughter and watch almost all the Sylvester McCoy episodes, and she really liked them.
Yeah, I often hear
they stand up really well, actually.
Yeah, I often hear.
I didn't necessarily love them at the time, but that's a really good era of the show now, I think.
Well, there are people who are younger than us when we saw it, who talk about it. It's good to hear sort of people who are, I don't know, they're probably over 40 now, but it's difficult. That is difficult for me because that is definitely a nostalgic period, because that's when I met a lot of my pen pals like yourself, and got started meeting other people and doing things and going to conventions, and so even though I didn't always like, I think by the time I got pen pals, I was liking it. It's just that first season I'm not so convinced. But then a lot of my favourite Doctor Who stories are again not ones that I remember at the time, like Green Death or Seeds of Doom are probably my two favourite, just because I like maggots really, and whales.
Well, yes.
And I also like big gardens with overgrown aliens wandering around them. But it does explain why I like horror. I probably like horror, well, definitely like horror more than I like sci-fi, unless it's sci-fi horror like Alien, or sort of, yeah. Because a lot of my favourite Doctor Who is scary Doctor Who, or things coming down to Earth Doctor Who. But what do you think, Deals? I thought so.
There's not much horror on TV. There never has been, really.
No.
Proper horror.
Well, that's the thing with Inside Number 9. It's still more funny than it. Well, it's still trying to be more funny than it is trying to be scary.
Well, that's questionable, isn't it? Whether it really should be called a comedy show. There's some very, very few jokes in, if any.
Like the one that they did at Christmas, set in the church. Yeah. The only thing that was funny about that was that there were one comedy character really, a husband and wife. Otherwise, you could have. I kind of like to see one that was just 100% serious.
I think, to be honest, there's one called The Harrowing, which is still I will never go back and watch that because it freaked me out. It's in the first series, and it's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. Simply because it's not because of jump scares or shocks or anything. It's just the ending, the way that ends is so wrong. It starts off almost like a pastiche of Carry On Screaming. You've got Reece Shearsmith playing a Kenneth Williams type of character in a blonde wig. He looks ridiculous. And it gets progressively more disturbing, and there's a final scene with a demon wearing a nappy.
It sounds it sounds funny, but presumably
no, it's not. It's absolutely just. It's so wrong. It's like, and it just ends in the most unpleasant way you can imagine. And I don't think there's been very few things which have just disturbed me. And I think that's the mark of good horror. Is it should leave you thinking you're still there. You're caught up in it. You don't know what. You have to imagine what on earth happened at the end to that poor person, and there's no resolution, nothing. And there's very few things which do that, because most horror films end with, the murderer or whatever, the monster getting killed, and that's it. They might reappear a bit. Dracula could be come back from the grave, but he'll essentially be destroyed, and good will win. But
in a blonde wig and a nappy, Dracula is back to.
But in this Inside Number 9, The Harrowing, it's just you're left there with this horrific image in your mind, and it's left to you to imagine what happens, which makes it worse in a way. And there's very few things like that.
Comedy horrors can fall a bit flat sometimes if they don't get the right balance. There's very few that I really. I guess Shaun of the Dead is still.
Yeah, that's not really horror though. It's more a comedy with a horror kind of.
Have you ever seen Sightseers? I really like Sightseers.
No.
That sort of treads the ground, but that's more to really strange people meeting up and going out with each other and killing people because they get cross.
Well, it depends what horror you enjoy. What would you say is, what would you mark out as very, very, classic horror films or TV shows? Not that there are many horror TV shows.
I like psychological horror, things like Rosemary's Baby and rather than, I do like slasher films, but I tend to like slasher films if you don't know I like the whodunit element of. So Freddy, knowing it's Freddy Krueger or whatever isn't exciting for me, which is but why I do like Scream, because you don't know who it's going to be.
Well, you mentioned Alien, and that's basically a slasher film.
Yes,
but with an alien.
And I like those later ones, which I know a lot of people, the ones that were made about 10 years ago, because they were just had lots of nice jump scares and things. You knew that something bad was going to happen because you'd seen enough Alien films, but there was enough new things, but yeah, I don't tend to. I do like supernatural horror films, but I don't necessarily like the sort of supernatural horror films they make these days, where it's just a scary house. It needs to be more like, as we were talking about at the start, the Stone Tape, where it's a bit more than that.
Yeah, that there's something. I mean, the Stone Tape, again, you don't really know what happens at the end. It's quite peculiar. It's very weirdly done, because if it was done nowadays, they'd use amazing CGI, but they didn't have that then, and it's quite unclear what's happening, and that adds to it in a weird way.
What do you think? Well, as we talk about Nigel Neal, what do you think of that last Quatermass that they made? Have you seen the one that they made
with John Mills?
With John Mills.
No, I never watched that. But it's all about hippies, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
and it's kind of Nigel Neal as an old man railing against young people, isn't it?
And also, it's a bit weird, because if it had been made, I think it was originally going to be made a lot earlier than it was from the time they made it. So all the hippie stuff was a bit. It seemed weird, because there hadn't been any hippies cited for years. But it's one of those things where I think the first half, when you don't know much, sometimes a lot of things, or horror things, or sci-fi things, it's great when you don't know what's going on, but when you know everything, it's just a matter of resolving it. It can be a bit sort of okay. I'm just going to have to spend the next 2 episodes resolving. I liked it when I didn't know what was happening. Yeah.
Did you see a show called The Terror? Which was set on a boat which got stuck in the Arctic.
I don't think I did. Quite recent.
Well, relatively recently. Yeah, it's very, very good as well. It sort of mixes a real life horrible event, but adds a supernatural element to it.
There's something called The Rig, which I watched half of, and then kind of wasn't sure whether I wanted to keep watching it. Which was sort of somebody was telling me the other day they thought it was very sort of Quatermassy and well, actually no, they said it was very much like Fury from the Deep, the Doctor Who story. Like every time although that's not really the most we know about it, but that's not.
Oh, well, actually, I don't know much about Fury from the Deep, because I think I read the book about.
Yeah, I've seen the animation, but even so, it's not. They'd have to have been quite hardcore Doctor Who fans to be nicking ideas from it 40 years later, 50 years later, because it's not the most well-known or accessible story to be taking ideas from. But,
I'm just trying to think what horror TV there was in the past, because it's slim pickings really. There's the occasional play or one-off drama.
I mean, you had the Hammer House of Horror in the early 1980s, and then they did Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense. But of the two of those, the second series is much harder to come by on DVD. Don't know, they must be owned by different people. I've got Hammer House of Horror, and I have got the 85 series, but it was released in 2 halves, and I bought the first half and then got distracted, and the next thing when I sort of realised, I don't have the other half, it was about 50 quid or something, and eventually I managed to get a second-hand copy, so I do own it. But so it's weird when you see when I see my DVD collection, certain things on it are now out of print and quite valuable if I wanted to sell them. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Tales of the Unexpected had some scarier, but not really horror. And some of the ones that are a little bit horror are more by inference. Some of the Roald Dahl ones, like the one with Joan Collins, where she has to she puts her head through the statue and can't get it out, and it's inferred that someone's going to saw her head off, but you don't actually see that happen. That might just be people hoping. I don't know. The last thing I was going to ask was because am I right in saying you studied film studies at some stage when you went to university? Do you find you can enjoy cinema without sort of thinking about deconstructing it, and also can you enjoy bad films?
Are there any bad films?
Well, I don't think some of my favourite films are regarded as bad films. That's the thing.
Yeah. I think, well, that's going back a bit, but what good it did was give me an appreciation of the history of film. So I'm quite knowledgeable about, I can talk about Fritz Lang, for example, or Hitchcock, or, various other big name directors, which maybe people nowadays wouldn't really know much about, but that gives me an appreciation of how cinema developed, and it's very good to go back and watch these classic films. They do stand up very well. And I watched Metropolis the other day, which is the Fritz Lang film from 30 something, and it's an amazing piece of work. It's a hard watch because it's obviously no sound in it. And it's quite difficult sometimes to work out what is happening. But the imagery is so unique and weird. It's just weird things appearing on your screen, people doing weird things, and it's unlike anything you'd ever see now. And it's fascinating to go back and look at these things.
I did enjoy. When I finished university and I was looking for a job, and I didn't find a job, and heaven knows I was miserable now, but no, that's somebody else. I wasn't sure I was living back in Salisbury, and I wasn't quite sure when I was going to find a job, so I did a film studies A-level. I started to, and I only got about halfway through the first term before something came up and I had to leave, but I was enjoying film studies far more than English literature, like for A-level, because I think there's always something you can enjoy from a film, I think, or the sort of films that they would have on a course like that, whereas the books that they chose for us to study just seemed to be like, choose the 10 most boring books, and then you will read them, and also you take much longer to get through than a film would. But I'm sure you must have had moments where you really hated some films they were wanting you to study.
Oh yeah, we had this is 30 years ago, but we had a whole module on westerns.
Ooh.
And I'm not a big fan of westerns. I don't get them. I've got no real interest in. I don't even know the context. I don't understand. How life was in the olden days with cowboys and stuff, and I don't really get it. So I never really got into it. And also, most westerns seem to be the same thing. So there's the same kind of story, and I never really appreciated them. And there's an awful lot of westerns. It's like hundreds and hundreds of them.
Kind of almost surprised that they would think they had a value, or if they think the westerns have a value, then they could have done a season of Italian horror films, and and that they are, because the westerns were just as disposable as a lot of the Italian horror films.
Some of them are very good, like The Searchers is one of the best ones, in which John Wayne plays a deeply troubled, he's having a nervous breakdown basically, and he's trying to recover a lost girl who's been apparently kidnapped by Indians, and it's basically, you go into his psychological state a lot more, which is unusual for a western, it's usually black and white, good guys versus bad guys. There's a few very good ones, but as a genre, I wouldn't. It's not something I'd go back to.
Well, we had to do Sylvia Plath for poetry, and I think that's probably the worst possible poet you could choose to because she's just not very accessible. And I know people. I'm actually rereading The Bell Jar because I think I read The Bell Jar around the same time, and her prose style is, even if she's talking about a depressing subject, her prose style is so much more easy to get into than her poetry style.
Wow. Yeah, I never had you down as a Sylvia Plath fan. Yeah.
So I'm not for her poetry. In fact, Sylvia Plath poetry is what started me writing poetry, because...
Well, I like Sylvia Plath. I'm the same with Jane Austen, because I was force-fed that in school, and I know a lot of people love Jane Austen, and, you know, people are always making new films, new TV versions, but no, not for me.
I haven't read much that is considered good.
From
what they would like you to read from, like, an English literature course. Okay. Probably I'm not that good if it's that old anyway. The nearest thing, and I don't think she's probably regarded as being somebody who you'd have on an English literature course. I do like Daphne du Maurier, but I think they would probably think that. And I like.
I've never read. I'd love to read Daphne du Maurier, because of course you've got The Birds and Don't Look Now.
Short stories, definitely read the short.
Apparently nothing to do with what she originally wrote.
No, The Birds is very much in isolation. No plot really. Don't Look Now is a bit more like the film. Her short story collections, I definitely say give a go. She wrote them later in her career, and they don't seem that dated. They and in fact some of her. She didn't die until like 89, but she stopped writing in the mid-70s. I think she might have run out of ideas, and I think she wrote books about Cornwall and things instead. But some of her later books are, you know, considering what, say, Agatha Christie might have been doing towards the end of her career, she comes up, you know, there's a sort of time travel-y one called The House on the Strand, which is really good, plus all the short stories. Plus the last one she did was about if the Germans had won the war and we'd been taken. So it's interesting sort of things for somebody to be writing about later on in her career. And I also like, I've forgotten the name, she wrote The Haunting of Hill House, and they always live in the castle. That forgotten who wrote those, but I think I would like to think they would be on some English literature course now. Perhaps because they were only written in the early 60s. In the 80s, they might have been considered too new. I don't know when we were at school what would have been allowed, or, you know, how new.
Some of the films I studied on my course are still absolutely my favourite films. I studied Alien, and it was really interesting to look at that from a point of view of. I actually studied it from a feminist perspective, which is quite weird. But if you think about Alien, it's how it transforms the usual. I won't go there because it's getting very complicated and unfunny subjects. But
certainly a different.
Yeah. But anyway, forget that.
A different perspective, but I mean. If I'd have been allowed, if I knew you're allowed to sort of, I presume if you do coursework and stuff, you can take like a genre that you like and do, or if you're doing have to do a dissertation, you could. But I guess sometimes it can come down to the person who's marking that piece of work as to whether they think what you're choosing is a good film to be discussing. Anyway, well, Dales, he didn't say a lot this time, but I think he's been so interested. Just been interested. He likes to hear people talking about these things, don't you? Yeah. But, anyway, well, thank you very much, Andrew, and we will be glad to have you back. We welcome you back on the Shy Life podcast at a later date. And Thank you for being here in Surrey and not in Birmingham.
Yes, can I go back now? Am I
oh yeah, you can go back. I'm going to have to do a pie seance and get you to go back.
Can you get? I mean, these chains you put on my.
Deals. What did you do with the keys? Deals.
I mean, you do have the keys, right?
Deals. Do you have? I'll speak to Deals. He'll sort it out.
They're quite tight.
It'll be fine. Deals, get the keys.
Yes. I mean, I'd really appreciate if you could maybe.
Deals.
Hello. Can I go?
Deals.
Has anyone got the keys?
He's being very quiet on this matter. Well, that's about all we've got time for. Yeah, it's been a good episode, isn't it? Andrew's been here, and this Uncle John sort of looked after him whilst I had to go and put some more coal on the podcasting bonfire or something. But Andrew's not gone yet. I haven't actually located the keys, but I'm sure we'll find them somewhere. And you don't have to rush off, do you?
Well, do I have a choice?
We'll locate those keys.
Yeah.
I don't know why we resorted to.
Resorted to chaining me up. Why?
We just thought you might go back again before we finished.
I would. Do you normally chain your guests up?
I don't often get guests to come and sit in my front room, to be honest.
I'm not surprised.
Don't let this...
Is that a skeleton over there in the corner, by the way?
That's not a skeleton.
It looks like one. Is that one of your
No. It's just a friend of Dealey's.
Right.
Old Boney. Deals.
I'm starting to feel a bit uncomfortable about this situation.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Is it?
It's just...
I'm just a bit concerned about...
Andrew, you're on candid camera.
Why?
It was just a joke.
Right. Okay. I can't see any camera.
You might want to check those those handcuffs. They're just plastic. You just have to press this little button and
yeah, they just came off.
Yeah.
Oh.
You see, it was a joke.
Right.
It's not really held you hostage.
What? Okay. So I'm free to go then.
Yeah. Can you just stay for a minute or two longer? Just because we're recording the end of the episode, and I just like to have a little bit of chat before we go.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I'll send you back via the magic and things again, right, if you like.
Well, it's better than
Eurostar.
Yeah.
We were just using the ancient the ruins of like, well, we call it a pie seance. It's to just use a pie really, because it's easier to clear up afterwards. You just eat it once you finish doing things.
Yes, and use it to communicate with the afterlife.
Something that I was taught by Charlie Gurr, the Begurian celebrity. We usually use a what is it? Hedgehog eyebrows and belly button fluff pie with a sort of strange gravy. Those are what the pies are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not to my taste, but it's very popular in Berguria.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, I was thinking, you've travelled quite a lot. Have you ever been to Berguria?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't know where it is exactly. But,
it's somewhere in Europe. But it's very confusing as to where. I've been there, but I didn't. It was all very veiled in secrecy. I got on some plane and it's a short hop from somewhere, and suddenly I was there. It's quite It's quite something. The only famous person in the whole of Beguria is Charlie Gurr. He is the famous person. They only have one famous person in Beguria. But look, I'll just go and sort out the Pi seance equipment, and then there's some theme music coming now. So and my friend Cromity's just turned up, so he might want to say hi. But, yes, okay. So you are the famous Andrew. I'm Cromity. I don't know. We may have met back in the Sutton Park days. I can't remember. I was on the show, and I think that you were sometimes on the show. But
I was one of the main guest stars, I think. Yeah. Like I don't know, on the Golden Girls or something, they'd have.
Yes.
I don't know. Burt Lancaster or someone. I was a bit like that.
Oh yes. I think you were Horner the Amphibian Man.
Yes. That was one of my. That was one of my most accomplished roles.
I've seen some of your episodes. They always made me laugh.
Yes.
Yes.
It was about 6 hours in makeup for that.
Oh.
It was
yes.
A tough gig, but I'm glad that you remember.
Yes. Well, it's always nice to meet a fellow as actor from but from back in the day.
Yeah.
It's very noisy out there today. What's going on? I guess Uncle John's just let the magpies out, I think. But I hear you met Yeti Uncle John. He's a nice soul, isn't he?
Yes. We discussed many important matters.
Yes. I hope he didn't try and sell you any of his knockoff T-shirts.
He didn't sell me anything, no, which is good. No,
yes. Well, that's good. That means he must have really liked you, because he usually tries to sell merchandise that has gone badly wrong. But, the seance stuff's all ready, Andrew, if you want to come and sit in the middle of this pentangle thing.
In the middle, okay.
Yes, because you've got to be astrally projected.
Right, okay.
Have you got everything?
Yes.
Okay. I can hear the music coming again. Listeners, just hang around for a moment or two more, and we'll project Andrew back to his home city. Oh, this is going to be exciting. I've never seen this done before. Yeah, there might be a...
You do promise I'll be returned to the correct place. I won't be returned to some random island or mountaintop.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Are you sure? Because this pie is looks a bit ropey, to be honest. No offence, but...
No.
Its pentacle is a bit wobbly. The lines aren't straight.
I know, it's fine.
It'll be fine,
It'll work. It'll be fine.
Right.
Paul, are you sure?
Have you done this before?
Yes, many times. I don't remember you doing it before. Shh, Cromity, shush.
Have you got a license to do this?
Yes, I got it from the internet. I just have to do a 6-hour course, and I got a certificate.
Right. Okay.
It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
Wow, really? No kidding.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 Network. find more shows over at pride48.com.
What's going on now?
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Okay, Andrew, are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. Are you sitting comfortably?
No, not really, no. It's a bit tight in here. Are you sure this is going to work?
It's fine. Probably you know what you need to do. I don't know what I need to do. Just have to say omnipadium, or something like that. Omnipadium, what does that mean? I don't know, I heard it on a Doctor Who story from the 1970s. Okay, I'll do it. Right, yes, we have a particular chant we have to issue.
Okay.
There's omnipadium.
I'm happy to take the train, it's fine.
No, it's fine. Comedy. Omnipadium, omnipadium. Yes, omnipadium.
Are you sure you've done this before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Omnipadium. This might take some time, listeners, so just you don't have to hang around if you don't want to. Omnipadium. Omnipadium.
I think my shoes disappeared.
It's working.
Where's it gone?
It'll be the other end. You have to go after it now. Omnipadium. Omnipadium. Yes, omnipadium. Oh, what's going on? Omnipadium. I like this bit. Omnipadium. Oh, are you going, Andrew? Oh, look, he's going slowly. Bit by bit. Good to see you. He looks scared. No, he's fine. Omnipadium. Oh, look, he's gone. He's gone. It's all gone. Yeah, I'll give him a ring later, make sure he got home okay. I think that's probably a good idea. Yes, nice chap. Yeah, he told me some valuable things. Yeah, I feel quite empowered. It's good. I hope he got back all right.
What the hell just happened on this show? I mean, seriously, reverse it, because I lost... What's going on? What happened?
Oh, I think that was a wonderful episode, don't you, Toppy?
I sure do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's just shove this one out. Get her going.
6, 4, what comes after that? 6, 5, oh. It's 650, for God's sake.
600. That'll do, I think.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.